Okay, welcome back everybody. This is the Creation Liberty Hour. This will be show number 16 for, what was the date today? November 28th. I'm Chris Johnson. I'm the founder of Creation Liberty Evangelism, where we strive to win the lost to Christ and teach the truth of science and God's Word. And we believe, without apology, that evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of mankind. And we believe absolutely that the Bible is the foundation of knowledge, truth, and reason. And when it comes to science, the Bible is correct. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, or if you're watching a recording from YouTube, you can always join us in live chat on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We open chat around 6:30, and you're welcome to come in and talk with everyone. And that's at creationliberty.com. If you click on podcast, it'll take you right there. So we'll jump in and get started right away. First of all, I want to make an announcement. There was a new article that came out on our website this week called "Is the One Pastor Church System Biblical?" And you'll be surprised what you read on there. I was surprised as the Lord showed me some things that I wrote in that article. And if you're watching a recording of this, you can go to creationliberty.com, click on Q&A to find the link to read that. So you can read about it's basically over what a lot of the modern day churches, especially in America, are doing. The system they have set up for their churches is not actually found in the Bible, and that'll discuss more on that topic. So. If you want to discuss that more, you can always join our Facebook group. Go onto our website and click on join us on Facebook and join in the discussion there if you want to talk more about that. So let's see who we've got. We got a couple visitors in the chat today. We've got Aaron is joining us and Josh is joining us. Hi, guys. If you're with us there. Yeah, there they are. Okay. I just want to make sure I had my chat set up. Hello. And all right. Let me see. Now, where are we going? Okay, today we're going to discuss transitional fossils. This was a question that was brought up last week, and we didn't really have enough time on last week's show to go over this, so I'm going to cover it today. Let me open up my slides here so I can show you guys some pictures. You guys can follow along so you won't have to stare at me. I'm really glad we got that technology working so we can do that, and here we go. So this is going to be part again of my seminar 4, which I've not actually released yet. This is not done. Everything you're seeing here is not finalized. I still have things to add to this. But we're going on to way down to lie number 15. I cover about 20 or so different lies that are taught in the textbooks, and this is going to concern this, about how they say that there's evidence for evolution from fossils, okay? This is a whole biology textbook here. It says that there's evidence for evolution from the fossil record. This is what all the textbooks are teaching. This one says, after observing such differences, he's talking about between, different types of creatures, Darwin predicted that missing links, or intermediate forms, between the great groups of organisms would eventually be found. Since Darwin, many of these links have been found. So the textbooks are claiming that there are missing links that have been found in the fossil record. Now, Darwin himself, though I do not have that on here. Darwin himself said that he says, if my theory be true, I'm trying to figure out how he quoted this in his book. He said, if my theory be true, there should be numberless intermediary links. Basically, he's saying there should be countless amounts of missing links found if his theory is true. But to this day, 160 years later, they are struggling to find one, which ought to be fantastic evidence against the evolution theory just from that alone. And this guy from the University of Chicago, in his article Evolution in the Fossil Record, said in the years after Darwin, his advocates hoped to find predictable progressions. In general, these have not been found, yet the optimism has died hard and some pure fantasy has crept into textbooks. You're kidding. Fantasy in the textbooks? No way. Anyway, David Belinsky, he continues to talk about, he says, there are gaps in the fossil graveyard where there should be intermediate forms, but where there is nothing whatsoever. No paleontologist writing in English, French, or German denies that this is so. It is simply a fact. Darwin's theory and the fossil record are in conflict. Now, the question is, well, if evolution was supposed to be such, if it was supposed to be proven by the fossil record, and this is supposed to be an established fact of science, why are scientists arguing over this? It's not an established fact of science. Now, if you want to believe that it is, and we're going to go on to discuss a few examples here in a moment, but if you want to believe that it is, that's fine. Folks, I don't know why these evolutionists get so bent out of shape over this. It's fine if you want to believe that. I don't care what you want to believe. I'm just saying that what you're claiming is science is not part of science. None of this is a proven fact at all. It's a theory, and in my personal opinion, I think it's a really dumb theory. So let's continue on here to the next point. Now, there is something that every person, I'm not even talking about just creationists, evolutionists need to know too. If you find a fossil in the ground, the only thing you know for certain is that it died. You don't even know where it died. You just know where it ended up getting buried. The only thing, I mean, it doesn't come with a tag on it that tells its date that was billions of years ago. All you know is that it died. Okay? Everything else you draw from this fossil is inference. Okay? Now, there's a Dr. Colin Patterson. This guy was the head of the British Museum of Natural History. I needed to slow down. I'm getting ahead of myself. He wrote in correspondence to a man named Luther Sutherland, who wrote a book called Darwin's Enigma. Okay, now Luther Sutherland read Dr. Patterson's book about missing links. He says, and here's what he said, quote, "I fully agree with your comments on the lack of evolutionary transitions in my book." Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I said Luther Sutherland. Luther Sutherland, let me back up here. Wow, I'm really getting ahead of myself. What Luther Sutherland did is wrote to him, and he says, "I read through your book, and I noticed that you didn't provide any examples of any type of missing links. Could you tell us why you didn't provide any of that?" Here's what Dr. Colin Patterson wrote back, who's the head of the British Museum of Natural History. He said, "I fully agree with your comments on the lack of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them. I will lay it on the line. There is not one such fossil." Now, he does go on to say, you know, there's not one such fossil that could make an airtight case in the entire quotation. If you actually read the letter and read the book, you'll see that that's what he states. But he still claims that there is not a fossil that he knows of that could use an airtight case where this could say, yes, this is proven as a missing link, and which is why he didn't provide any in his book. So, I mean, and this guy, I mean, Colin Patterson, he was in charge of British Museum of Natural History, is supposed to have the largest fossil collection in the world, and this guy's saying he doesn't know of any? Well, please, any evolutionists out there, and you know, I'm sure they'll be watching this on YouTube or other places. If you know of if you know of missing links, my question to you is, what is it that you know that this guy doesn't know? He was in charge of the largest collection in the world. What do you know that he doesn't? So this is in a creation evolution debate. The picture here is of Dr. Weisenberg at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This was in 2002. He stated, quote, in the debate, he says, "Evolution is proven. We have the fossil record." Here he is saying evolution is proven by the fossil record. Probably, I would say, about 45 minutes later, he said, "Fossils don't prove evolution." He said that during Q&A. As soon as the creationists got on, and I'll tell you guys, because I've seen this before. I watched through this debate actually quite a few times. When the creationist was talking, he pointed out you can't prove anything. When you find a fossil, no fossil can possibly count as evidence for evolution. You can prove nothing with a bone you found in the dirt, okay? Dogs dig in the dirt to find bones, but we don't pay their salary while they do it. I'm against doing that kind of thing. I'm all for the science, I'm all for the discovery, but we don't need to be paying these guys salaries while they dig in the dirt to try to find evidence for something that's not true to begin with. Now, but the thing is, when that was addressed, that point was made that you can't prove anything from that, and he started to back off in his initial statement. He's like, well, fossils don't prove evolution. But he stood up there and he was preaching to the crowd. He's like, evolution is proven. That's it. You've got the fossil record. You can watch the videos for yourself. I have some of those on the main page of my website if you want to see that for yourself. And this is a debate that you can find on YouTube and other places. They have that provided. So let's continue on. There's another interesting debate that happened here, and this is where there was a creationist taking on 3 evolutionists at once. This was the person labeled here is biologist Jim Strayer. He's a professor at Embry-Riddle University. This is the guy. He has an atheist summer camp for kids to teach them to be good atheists. And he stated in the debate, he says, we have sets of bones in fossil records. We have that evidence. There's a lot of dots in there. Go watch the debate. He stutters in between a lot of this, but this is overall what he says. We have sets of bones in fossil records. We have that evidence. During this section that he was talking about, he says evolution is proven because of the fossil record. We have that evidence. And then about an hour later in the debate, he said fossils don't mean anything as far as evolution is concerned. What do you even say to that? And these are men that think that they are up here in in these science classes teaching the truth, and this is what they actually say in live debate. It's really interesting how they when you actually get them in a one-on-one conversation, how much contradiction really comes out of their mouth. Stephen Gould, who's deceased now, I mean he's an evolutionist, he's a creationist now because he died. But, he was an evolutionist for his life, and he said the absence of fossil evidence for intermediary stages has been a persistent and nagging problem for evolution. So he's saying, look, it's just, the lack of evidence here is a really serious problem. So what they do is they'll take something like the horse evolution, which I'll go over in just a second, but they show, one creature, and then they'll get a different fossil of a different creature, and they'll show that, and they'll show the next one, and show the next one, and they'll arrange them by size or by shape or something like that, and then say that proves evolution. Arranging things in order doesn't prove anything. I can arrange knives to forks to spoons, but that doesn't prove that they all came from a nail clipper, 4 million years ago. Arranging things in order doesn't prove anything, okay? So we'll talk about how arranging things in order doesn't. If I get buried on top of a hamster, that doesn't prove he's my grandpa, okay? You have to, look at things logically. You don't know when or where this thing died. You just know where it ended up getting buried. That's it. And this is the horse evolution that's still in textbooks today. That's presented, they'll show where the one on the left-hand side has 18 pairs of ribs, and then there's 15 pairs of ribs when it evolves further, and then when it evolves further, it gets 19 pairs of ribs, and then it goes back down to 18. You see how they're just arranging them by size? They're really not arranging them by anything that's going to be helpful to the creature. They're just saying, oh, well, it's getting bigger and bigger and stronger, so this is how we're going to arrange it. And, taking things that might look similar doesn't mean they're the same kind. It doesn't mean they come from the same location. Or the same families of creatures. So, and just to make a new bone in the body, you gotta understand, to make a new bone anywhere in the body, you have to understand it's not just, oh, we're going to grow a bone here. You have to change the DNA. You have to change how things are coded, and how things are coded according to the molecules that are developing there, like the proteins and all that. For example, when something grows, how does it know where to stop? There's a certain code that combines that has to be pre-set up. Just like, you can't just, throw a bunch of building parts into an area and randomly it will create a house. You have to have building blueprints beforehand. You have to have a plan when you're making this house. And so you're changing not just the code, you're changing the muscular structure, you're changing the nervous system. You have to change everything about it, the entire spine up to the brain. You have to change how everything connects through that. That is not possible through random chance. They can believe that. Again, evolutionists, you're welcome to believe that. I don't really care what you believe. That's fine. If you want to believe that, you're welcome to have any theories or dumb religious ideas that you want in this country. You're allowed to have those, okay? I'm not fighting you on that. I'm just saying this is not science. That's all I'm trying to say from that. So let's continue on and take a look at this. Just talking about the horse evolution. Many examples commonly cited, such as the evolution of the horse family or saber-toothed tigers, can be readily shown to have been unintentionally falsified and not to be really orthogenic. Okay, that this is the evolution of the horse family has been unintentionally falsified. That was in Scientific Monthly. The early classic evolutionary tree of the horse was all wrong in Science magazine. And this is from George Simpson from Harvard University. The uniform continuous transformation of the Hyracotherium into Equus, that's the horse evolution model, so dear to the hearts of generations of textbook writers, never happened in nature. Okay, it's still taught today, but it did not happen. All right. Other examples, including the much repeated gradual evolution of the modern horse, have not held up under close examination. But this is taught in museums all over the place. This is the Peabody Museum in Connecticut. Still teaching the horse evolution that was proven wrong. It was proven fraudulent, okay? There's another one that says dinosaurs evolved into birds, okay? They claim they have transitional forms from dinosaurs to birds. This guy says dinosaurs alive as birds. These are what's being taught in the mainstream media. It's taught in the textbooks everywhere. God said on the 5th day that he created the fowl, and then on the 6th day he created the beast of the earth. So according to the Bible, evolution is completely backwards to what actually happened. God created birds first, then the dinosaurs. According to evolution, dinosaurs came first, then birds. So this is from USA Today. Scientists unveil a true missing link between birds and dinosaurs. Okay, Archaeoraptor is an example of one of them that they've used. And keep in mind, when we're going through this, I guess maybe I should say this to the camera. As we're going through this, I want you guys to keep something in mind. As we're going through this, oh man, I forgot to click over to the other thing for a while. That's going to be a little messed up. Oh well. This is as we're going through this. Every few weeks, every few months, they come out with a new missing link. Okay, it happens. I mean, any more today. I mean, you only have to wait probably about a month or two before they're going to say, "Oh, look, we found a new missing link." Here's the missing link that links this animal to this animal. But every time, never do they have any evidences that have stood the test of time. You may have some evolutionists come up and say, but you see, this one was proven. No, it hasn't stood the test of time yet, because every time they're stood the test of time, a few years later, they'll get proven wrong. And what'll happen is the mainstream media always comes out when they have all the, the brand new missing link that came out. Mainstream media is all over it. But then, a few years later, it'll be proven wrong, and it barely gets mentioned. And if it's brought up in conversation, what's the evolutionist reply? Oh, but we just discovered this new one over here. So don't focus in on any of the mistakes we've made or any of the things that we lied about. Just, go look at this new one. But a few years later, that will be in the same position the one you're discussing now is, and it just keeps going over and over. Just like the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. They're going to keep doing this year after year, and it's never going to end, okay? That's why, eventually they're going to keep saying that there's more and more missing links, but they all keep getting proven fraudulent. And they're just going to keep replacing it with something else that they hope and pray will be able to prove their theory somehow. But man, there should be trillions of these things, and they are struggling to find one. So let me go back into this, and we'll actually switch this over properly now, and we'll go back into this. So this is Archaeoraptor is used as a missing link of birds and dinosaurs. Okay, National Geographic posted this. They said, "Breaking news, we have found the missing link. Here it is." And until, USA Today posted, just a few months later, the missing link dinosaur bird featured by National Geographic is a fake. It was an absolute embarrassment to them. This is from USA Today. It said, from the remote province of China, an unusual dinosaur fossil has made a mysterious journey from the hands of Chinese smugglers to the polished halls of the National Geographic Society in Washington. It may be remembered as modern paleontology's greatest embarrassment. It somehow sprouted its remarkable tale not 120 million years ago, but only shortly before being smuggled out of China. Added by an entrepreneurial Chinese farmer to a flying pterosaur. Whether a deliberate fake or an honest mistake, it is the tale of a tale that has children believing in feathered dinosaurs that never existed. The popular view, thanks most recently to the fictional Jurassic Park, is that birds evolved from dinosaurs. National Geographic and Nature have co-published magazine articles and scientific papers supporting the view. Stars Olson, curator of birds at the Smithsonian, tried to warn officials at National Geographic that the organization was headed for embarrassment if it endorsed the fossil. So they were warned. But you see, they are so desperate for evidence for evolution that this becomes evidence for evolution. It doesn't matter what they find, as long as it supports evolution, they need it so desperately they'll just throw it out there without analyzing it first. And that's why I said you have to wait until it stands the test of time before you jump on and say we have evidence for evolution. Now this is another thing they try to bring up. They said, well, we found feathers on dinosaurs. Look at this fossil that has feathers on it. This is a dinosaur fossil having feathers. This is not feathers on a dinosaur. What this is, right here that you're looking at, is protein, as the protein of the skin frays as it fossilizes and makes this shape in the fossil. That's it. Alan Fiducia, who's considered one of the world's leading experts on birds, He said, on the contrary, there is a considerable body of evidence that these fossil traces known as dino fuzz have nothing to do with bird feathers. I and many others do not find any credible evidence that those structures represent proto-feathers. When he says proto-feathers, he means that, feathers that are just starting to grow on the dinosaur, okay? Let me see here if I got this right. Yeah, birds are the descendant of dinosaurs, is what these textbooks keep teaching, that bird feathers evolved from the same scales that protected the dinosaurs so well. It's still taught in the textbooks, even though the world's leading experts on birds are saying, no, this is not true, but the textbooks are still teaching it because, after all, you have to have something as evidence for evolution, right? So if you have to lie to the kids, that's the way you got to do it. Oh, well, let's go ahead and do it so long as they believe in evolution. You don't just put a few feathers on him and say, here, man, just give it a try. It'll be okay. There's a lot more complex things that would have to happen here, and it's not possible under naturalistic explanations or naturalistic processes. Now, this is a textbook, or excuse me, not a textbook, National Geographic. They posted, all these different dinosaurs and the bird-dinosaur connection, and here I have circled at the end is Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx is used as one of the, even today, I've had, evolutionists to say, well, Archaeopteryx is evidence for evolution. It's evidence that dinosaurs turned to birds. Well, let's take a look at this. This is Glencoe. It says Archaeopteryx that are about 150 million years old show both bird-like features and dinosaur-like features. So the birds and the dinosaurs, have a connection through Archaeopteryx, is what they claim. The earliest known bird is Archaeopteryx, is what this textbook is teaching. This is Hope Biology, meaning Archaeopteryx means ancient wing. Okay. Now, Alan Fiducia, again, one of the world's leading experts on birds, he said paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur, but it's not. It's a bird. It's a perching bird, and no amount of paleobabble is going to change that. Now, they say Archaeopteryx had claws on its wings, but that means absolutely nothing. The claws on the wings of Archaeopteryx is one of the main things they use to say that this is evidence for evolution, that this was turning from a dinosaur into a bird, okay? From Scientific American, when talking about what is a Hoatzin, Strahl adds that some ornithologists call the Hoatzin primitive because of its Archaeopteryx-like claws, but he prefers to think of it as highly specialized. Swans, ibis, and many other birds, he notes, have wing claws. They just never make use of them. There are 12 birds today that have claws on their wings, so it doesn't prove anything, okay? Some have claws, some don't. That is not evidence for evolution. They said Archaeopteryx had teeth, so that means it's, turning from a dinosaur to a bird. This is part of evolution, okay? Well, there's a hummingbird that lives in the rainforest in Panama that has teeth. So some birds have teeth, some don't. Some mammals have teeth, some don't. Some reptiles have teeth, some don't. Some of you have teeth, some don't. So that's not evidence for evolution, okay? Now, bird feathers and reptile scales are both made from keratin. That is where the similarity stops right there, okay? Common building materials do not prove common design engineer, or excuse me, common building materials prove common design engineers, not common ancestry, okay? Look, well, let me explain this. I guess going back to the camera again. Scales and feathers made from keratin, the protein keratin, is where the similarity stops. You have, structure, filament formation. You have, all sorts of design about this. Plus that they come from different genes on the chromosome. They have nothing to do with one another except that they're made from the same substance, okay? Which is not evidence for evolution once again. They think that, if it's made from the same thing, well, that proves that one evolved into another. That's not true at all. Battleships and forks are both made from iron, and that just proves that iron is a good substance with which to make things, okay? That doesn't prove that they both evolved from a tin can 5 billion years ago. So, this evolutionist, now this is from the Journal of Evolutionary Biology. This is not a creationist resource, okay? At the morphological level, feathers are traditionally considered homologous with reptilian scales. However, in development, morphogenesis, gene structure, protein shape, sequence, and filament formation and structure, feathers are different. Clearly, feathers provide a unique and outstanding example of evolutionary novelty. Now, the guy still believes in evolution, and we'll get that fixed, but, still he says they're different. They couldn't have evolved one from another. And there's all sorts of things about reptiles and birds that are different. I mean, reptiles have a three-chambered heart, birds have a four-chambered heart. I mean, you have the lungs are completely different. The nervous systems are different. I mean, and especially the lung systems. You have to understand birds require an enormous amount of oxygen in order to fly. You don't just change one from the other. I don't care how many billions of years you want to put on it. You don't just change one to the other, because there's going to be all the in-betweens are going to be practically useless. There are so many differences, okay? And then here's an interesting question, because this bird, this is a 130 million year old bird. They dated this as 130 million years old, called Confuciusornis, New Mexico Museum of Natural History in Albuquerque. So how can Archaeopteryx be a missing link if fully formed birds were around before the dinosaurs went extinct? I mean, there's a problem in the order that they put things in. And this, from Brigham Young University's archaeologists have come up with 140 million year old remains of what they are calling the oldest bird ever found. So there were birds around before this Archaeopteryx and all that. So what, I don't understand why they're calling this a missing link. From GeoTimes, it says, but there are plenty of other reasons to refute the dinosaur-bird connection. He says, how do you derive, this is Alan Fiducia again, how do you derive birds from a heavy earthbound bipedal reptile that has a deep body, a balancing tail, and foreshortened forelimbs? He said, biophysically, it's impossible. Now, again, if you want to believe dinosaurs turned to birds and that there's missing links for that, you are welcome to believe it, but that is not part of science, okay? The origin of birds is largely a matter of deduction. There is no fossil evidence of the stages through which the remarkable change from reptile to bird was achieved. So, again, well, here I might as well say this too. Richard Dawkins, I mean, even though we're going over all this, and even though we are showing that, you know, the evidence that says this is not true, and even from the evolutionists' own mouth that are saying this is not true, Richard Dawkins says it is absolutely safe to say that if you meet someone who claims to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane, or wicked. And he says, well, I'd rather not consider that. Well, then why did you say it? You know, he thinks they're wicked if you don't believe in evolution. The evolution theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless, and I agree with that, okay? And I'll tell you why. Let me explain this. Let's say dinosaurs turned to birds. We know that's not true. We know that is one of the biggest fairy tale, I mean, that's just completely illogical and such a fairy tale. But let's say for a moment it's true. What good is it going to do us? If that was true, what good would it do us, really? There's nothing that is going to help anybody with, okay? Nothing at all that it actually helps in the progress of science. Evolution is completely useless as far as science is concerned. And they talk about, you know, bacterial resistance and things like that. No. They're getting the misconception, okay, about that stuff, because, you know, bacteria's already had, you know, the things that are making bacteria resistant, they already had that resistance in their genetic code to begin with. They're simply the ones that were mutated and didn't have it died off, and so only the strong ones. You see, natural selection keeps the species, or if you want to use the term species, it keeps that species strong. But it basically strengthens the kinds, as according to the Bible says. Natural selection is a creation, quality control process. It is not something that's going to help your evolution theory. I don't care how many millions of years you give it, because there's limitations to the changes. So anyhow, let me check on the chat and see if we have any questions. Let me see here. Okay, Aaron said, I have a question for the end. He says, if evolution, specifically the survival of the fittest, was true, but it's not. He says he knows it's not, but let's say it was true. Would alleles pass because of changes in the climates? To be honest with you, I don't know what an allele is. I have never even... could you define allele for me? Because I'm not sure exactly what that is. Yeah, you'll have to get back with me. You know, if you type that in, tell me what an allele is so I know, and then we'll discuss that, because it's probably something I have heard of. I just didn't make the connection. I don't know, for some reason or another. Anyhow, we're going to go on to the last few minutes. Oh, a specific kind of gene. Okay, I'm thinking the wrong thing. So he's saying, would specific kinds of genes pass because of changes in the climate? It depends. It depends on what you mean. The changes in the climate don't really cause it. It's what specific type of change they got that's going to help them. Like, for example, if you have, let's take dogs, for example. Let's say you have a long-haired dog and a short-haired dog. Okay, now the long hair and short hair are both in the gene pool of the dog. But let's say that the dogs are breeding, and slowly as the climate changes, let's say after the flood, you're going to have a few hundred years of the flood that you're going to have all sorts of wild climate changes. After the climate changes, and let's say they happen to be living in an area that was warm, but now it's cold. It's very cold. So what they're going to do is, as they need to stay warm, the longer haired ones, you're going to have ones that, randomly get the, how you have recessive and dominant genes, and some of them, sometimes you'll, have a family that all has all black hair, and then one generation you'll just have one that has red hair. Well, that was already in the gene code long ago. So as you have someone that are, a mother's going to give birth to a litter of pups, and the pups, some of them will have long hair, some of them will have short hair. Well, because the ones with longer hair are going to survive, the ones with the shorter hairs are not going to survive, so they're killed off, okay? And evolutionists are going to agree with this so far. Now, the thing that I'm saying here is that eventually, as you keep breeding and breeding and breeding into the long hairs, you're going to have less and less short hairs breeded out, and even when you do, they're generally going to die off. Eventually, you're going to have only a long-haired breed that they breed among themselves, and they only have long hair. It separates, out a certain variety of that kind to a specific location. Now, here's the difference between the creation and the evolutionists. I agree with all that, and yes, that climate can, it doesn't change the gene, but the gene selects based on, the gene doesn't actually technically select either. It simply survives, and then that goes on to produce more of that same kind, or that same variety of that kind. However, what the evolutionists believe is that if you continue that process for millions of years, the dog can change into a horse or something else along those lines, okay? That is not possible no matter how many millions of years you give it. So I hope that answers your question. I didn't see any more in the chat on that. But the climate change itself does not change the alleles, okay, or the kinds of genes. If people doesn't, like myself, forget what an allele is. But the survival of the fittest doesn't work at all. And even the term survival of the fittest is a tautology. It's a sentence that means nothing. Why is it the fittest? Well, obviously because it survived. Well, why did it survive? Well, because it's the fittest. Can't you tell? It's circular reasoning. It's a sentence that means nothing. So even that survival of the fittest thing, that's not really any kind of anything that makes sense. And natural selection, like I said, it's not a force that's going to create something. It's a force that only keeps that particular variation strong for that particular type of climate change or environment that they need to survive in. So, and that really gives credit to the creator, that he created a wide variety within the kinds so that they could exist in more than one place. Just like horses exist in more than one type of terrain. Just so you have, zebras exist in certain places that are, that help them, and the other horses that we know of, or donkeys or different things like that, exist in different types of places. You have different varieties of bears. Some are really cold weather, some are warm weather. It just depends, okay? And he made a variety that can survive in a variety of places, so that way all of us can enjoy different types of animals, and they can, help out in their particular environments as they're supposed to. So it's not causing any kind of evolution. Minor changes like that, there's 8 different kinds of bears in the world, but you know what? They did have a common ancestor, I will say that. It was a bear. That's logical to the mind if you just stop and think about it for a moment. It doesn't mean they all evolved from fish billions of years ago. So, anyway, I want to respond to one more thing on here. I guess, I meant to respond to more of it, but I got to looking at this guy's comments again. I wanted to respond to some of the comments we had in our last show before we closed out here. And we got a guy named, I think his name is L.A. Wilson 200. I think that's, if I separate that properly, that's what that is. On YouTube that was coming on. He was writing all sorts of comments. Now, there's one thing I want to mention. I think his comments, if you go back to the last week's video, they've been removed on there, and I don't know why. When I checked out viewing all the comments, they'd all been flagged as spam, and I didn't fully understand that. I'm suspecting some people, I guess, went on there and flagged them as spam. All the evolutionist comments, and look, if there's somebody in the Christian world that's doing this, look, you really don't need to do that. I don't see a purpose in flagging everything as spam, because the comments that they make are not hurting us, okay? The comments that they're making are not they're not helping themselves. They think they're helping themselves, but they're not. They're simply showing the how religious their worldview is. So when you do that, I mean, it really doesn't help anybody, and it really makes it look like the Christian world is censoring things. So folks, if any of your stuff got marked as spam, I apologize. That was not me that was doing that. I actually encourage you guys to come on here and make those comments because you're really helping what I'm doing by making these comments. But I went and read through some of them. I mean, he whines a lot about ad hominem stuff over and over and over again. I think he just got mad that I'm not responding. He wants me to have a little YouTube comment debate. And that's, I mean, it's useless. That's not really a debate. That's just where, you sling mud for days and days on end, and I think it's just a waste of time. I mean, he's welcome to come on our show. If he wants to come on the show and talk about some things, we can talk about it, and I'm happy to do that. But here's the thing. He says, one comment I wanted to respond to. He said, Charles Lyell, actually what I can probably do, I just thought of this, is I can put it on the screen just like this. I don't know if you guys can see it right here. You may not be able to, but this is it right here. He said, Charles Lyell hated the Bible? He asked a question. He said, quote, Lyell was a Unitarian. He may have rejected the Trinity, but he did not hate the Bible. That is simply false. It was the death of Darwin's daughter which had more to do with the loss of his faith than anything else. Your claim, to put it mildly, is a lie. End quote. Now, I don't know where he, got this from, that he did not hate the Bible. What you have to do is you have to stop going to evolutionist sources for things a lot of times and go to the original sources. So let me open up some of my stuff here, and I totally forgot to look this up ahead of time. So let me put in Lyell here. And I should be able to pull this up. I will show you, because what happened is we had an episode that we talked about Charles Lyell and what he did with the geologic column. And the problem is that, well, you see, and I'm already losing it again. This is why I probably should have looked it up beforehand. But we had an episode, and that episode did not, well, the recording on Ustream didn't work out. So I'm trying to find the section that we talked about that. Let me go through this. Okay, we're getting close. Where is it? It was the part on the geologic column, and I can't remember exactly where it was. You guys have to be patient with me for a moment, and I will check the chat here in just a moment, see if we had any responses on some of the stuff that we talked about a moment ago. Here it is. I found it. Okay, we got it. All right, I will show you the quotations from Lyell, okay? And this is part of what he said. He said, men of superior talent who thought for themselves and were not blinded by authority. Okay, he's referring to the Bible here and what he's talking about. Lyell said that his goal was to free the science from Moses. All right, and that is part of what he said and some of what he wrote. And the whole point being is that in these quotations he makes, it's not because he likes the Bible. He absolutely hates that book, okay? Now, he may like certain parts of it, okay? I bet there's a lot of atheists out there that like the Golden Rule. Well, the do unto others as that you would have them do unto you. You know that's biblical, right? That's in the book of Matthew. That's where that comes from, okay? So there might be a part of what Jesus Christ's doctrine he had that they like. But as a whole, they hate it, okay? They hate that book. And it's apparent that they hate that book. So what I'm saying, even if, Hitler can make some, he might have made some false claims about Christianity, that, that he liked Christianity or he was a Christian or something like that, but we look at their actions, okay? We look at what they did, not just their words, you look at what they did. And so the thing is, he hated that book overall, and he wanted to find some way to say that book is wrong, and so that's what he did. And so it went from James Hutton converting Charles Lyell, who converted Charles Darwin, who started converting millions into believing his theory, and even Charles Darwin himself. I mean, the only reason his book started to get popular is because, the wealthy family he was involved in, I think, bought up 5,000 copies of his book in order to make it look like it's a bestseller, so a lot of people would start to buy it. So that's the only reason it started to get popular. Because he's really a boring author. I mean, when you read his book, he's not that great anyway. So anyway, let's see here. I didn't know... Well, Aaron didn't really respond once I answered that question, so I'm assuming I got that right. And I don't really see any of the questions right now, so I think we're getting close to the end of our stream. If you have any questions, post them right now, and we'll cover them in the last couple minutes here. But for now, I think that's mostly about all I was going to have. Let me check my notes. Yeah, And that L.A. Wilson 200, his name, he has it on his, if you check out his channel, his name's Vance. He's from Washington. So Vance, if you want to come on our show and discuss the evidence for evolution, if you believe you have some, because he said he's a geologist, he works as a geologist, it's a part of his hobby. So if he wants to come on and if he thinks he has evidence for evolution and wants to defend that on our show, please, come on over. And we'll be willing to do that. I'm trying to set up to where I can have, if you have a Ustream account, you can stream and I can put you and me together on a stream like that. I'm still testing that out, but if you really want to do that, I could test that out this week and we could try to make that happen. So just let me know and we'll try to make that happen. So I think that's it for today. And I can't remember, because I have to remember how many days there are in November. Yeah, it goes to the 30th, so I'm looking for December. When is our next show? December 5th. December 5th will be the next show. You know what? Actually, that's something I could probably get out some of my notes and get into that. Aaron just said, my buddy... his buddy at school was wondering about the supposedly gay gene, a gene that makes people gay. That does not exist, folks, and maybe we'll cover that some on the next show. I'm sure that'll make a lot of people upset, and that'll be fun. So anyway, so let's see here. December 5th will be our next show. That'll be show number 17 on December 5th. So you're welcome to join us again. You come, for those of you watching a recording, it's creationliberty.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can join us every Monday night. You can come in the chat and you can ask any questions you want. You can make comments and we'll talk about them on the show. And I appreciate everybody joining us. Tanya and Jewel joined us, and Josh and Aaron. So shout outs to you guys, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week when I'll see if we can do that. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to discuss. We may discuss the gay gene, or we may discuss some about the genetically modified foods. I haven't decided yet, but I'll let you know on Facebook. So those of you who are on there can check that out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, enjoyed the show, give it a thumbs up, send it to your friends, let them know we have this show, and we'll try to answer everybody's questions as we have time. So I appreciate everybody joining us, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.